Hello, welcome to Wellness Wednesdays. My name is Alejandra. I am the artistic director for Innersense Organic Beauty. I'm a holistic hairdresser and the owner of a clean air salon. Today, our focus is going to be all about environmental toxins found in salons. We are speaking with salon owner and holistic doctor, Kate. And can you pronounce her last name for me?
Yes, it's Egan.
Egan, Kate Egan. Welcome so much and thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, will you tell us about yourself?
Sure. So I am by trade a naturopathic doctor, and I have been practicing for just outside of 20 years, which is really horrifying to say out loud.
No, that's amazing.
And in the recent years, I've become really interested in environmental medicine, which a lot of people don't know much about. And what environmental medicine is basically the practice of looking to the environment for potential triggers and drivers of disease, especially chronic illness, which are sometimes hard to find. And so over the most recent years, I've become really interested in the beauty industry, mostly because I've partnered with a stylist, and we have kind of done a deep dive into just what's happening in a salon in terms of exposure. And so that's been an area of focus for this particular business that I have now.
That's amazing. And so in your more recent years where you've been focusing on salon toxins, you have been discovering, I'm sure, a lot of information that is going to be very important for our hairdressers to potentially either find out for the first time as they watch this video or learn more about. Will you tell us about those?
Yeah, so, it was interesting for me as well. Early on in my career, I'll say I had a few patients come in, a couple that are really memorable. One in particular was actually a nails technician. And, I had known her for a long time, and she had been doing, and still is currently in the industry. But over the years, she developed all sorts of problems like a thyroid cancer, and then she struggled with fertility. And there was just a lot of things that didn't make a lot of sense to me. And because I'd known her for so long, I was curious. And so that kind of started piquing my interest. And then when I met my business partner, Catherine, she was a student of mine. In addition to practice, I teach, and I've been teaching human physiology and pharmacology and pathophys for like 20 years as well. And so I have a lot of passion around education. That's really, really kind of at the core of what I love to do. And so we started sort of really doing this deep dive into this industry. And what I learned was kind of shocking. I don't know why, it just didn't really occur to me that this was a profession that warranted this much inquiry, really. You think of things like coal miners and people who work in chemical plants. You just don't really think about the people who are, on the daily cutting your hair and, interacting with you in the salon. And so what I learned is that, stylists are exposed to all sorts of chemicals every day in their workplace. And the big ones are, I don't know if you want me to go into a list, but I would say like the big ones are mainly like all the phthalates, which are chemicals that carry scent. So all the fragrance that in all the products. And phthalates are particularly interesting because they are, airborne. So traditionally when we think of exposure, we want to think about how does someone get exposed? And so the big routes of exposure are skin exposure, of course, but also the air exposure. And the air exposure, there's quite a bit of research, not so much in this country, but there's quite a bit of research in Europe. Like Spain, for example, is one place where I found a lot of research. And they've done a lot of studying on this particular industry and the actual inhalation exposure for many of these chemicals. So it's really important, of course, as you know, to have a clean air environment. So phthalates are a big one, parabens are big. And then when we get into a lot of the products, especially the dyes, there's things like PPD, resorcinol, there's quite a bit of metal, specifically lead in some of the hair dyes. Toluene is another big one. So I think the first thing to do is really start to look at the products and recognize what exactly you're working with. And what the risks are in those products. And so just quickly, some of the symptoms that we would expect to see from exposure. Of course, things like, rashes, skin. My partner, Catherine, when she was in cosmetology school, and this is how we actually met, she was in cosmetology school and also taking a physiology class with me. And she had this really extreme rash on her face that was being diagnosed wrongly by a lot of people as food allergies and, also eczemas and all sorts of things. But it was specifically on parts of her body that were exposed when she was in working, so her face is what was exposed, and above her neckline on her shirt was exposed. So she was getting rashes there. So like things like PPD are known. I think if I remember correctly, PPD is like one of the most common skin irritants. So most common drivers of dermatitis, some kind of an allergic skin condition. So rashes, those kinds of things. Of course, respiratory issues, chronic sinus issues, wheezing, asthmatic type symptoms. Those are things that are fairly obvious. But what I am most concerned about is the nature of some of these chemicals as endocrine disruptors. Have you ever heard that term before?
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah. So if for someone who doesn't know, and this is something I think we all want to know about. So an endocrine disrupting chemical. So in our bodies, hormones act as messengers. So basically everything in our body is about communication. And so our hormones communicate essentially with our cells and tell our cells what they want to do. And this, one of the main routes of communication over a distance in our body are our hormones. And in order for hormones to work, they have to bind to a receptor. And so a chemical that's an endocrine disruptor, it disrupts that communication, is an easy way to think about it. And so another way you could think about it is some of them can act as hormone mimickers. So they can either block those receptors or they can bind those receptors, which are almost more problematic, and they can act as if they are the hormone. So an endocrine disrupting chemical that has an estrogenic-like effect would act like estrogen in our body, and it could drive estrogen-dependent issues. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it definitely makes sense. And would you say these are found typically in chemicals, so hair color chemicals, or more so the products that we're using?
Both. There are both. So things like toluene is an endocrine disrupting chemical. PPD is an endocrine disrupting chemical. A lot of I think the phthalates. So an easy place to start, and that's, I think, one of the most important parts of this short conversation is like, what's an easy place to start? An easy place to start is to start to avoid things that have fragrance, because so anything that's fragranced is going to have phthalates. And I read a research article, and it was like 100%, this particular article, 100% of cosmetics and hair products that they studied that they looked at in this particular article, 100% of them contain phthalates. So these are things that are everywhere. Anything that is artificially scented is going to contain phthalates, and those phthalates are known endocrine disruptors. And so there's other sources of phthalates, not just beauty products, obviously, but plasticizers and those kinds of things. But this is someplace that you can start right away. And like Innersense, as you know, doesn't contain any fragrance, and nor do they. It's a great product for that for many, many reasons. But that's like one switch to make. Use products that don't contain fragrance, and that's a great, easy way to go. We could go on and on and on.
Yeah, we could. I love it. You've answered so many of my questions without me having to ask them.
I'm sorry. So just talk and talk.
So I love that you're also giving us, direction on how to sort of, if we haven't already begun the process of removing those, chemicals and products from our salon environment, you're really sharing with us how we can begin to do that, and why we should want to do that. And I love that right now in 2021, more people are becoming so much more aware. Hairdressers are just really sensing and trusting what it is that they're sensing as far as what they should be using, what they want to surround themselves in. They know automatically. I think I'm not sure what went on in the industry, 30 years ago. I've been in the industry for 20 years, and I've been fortunate enough to always be, you know, to be very minimally exposed to very harsh chemicals. And, you know, not a lot of us have had that opportunity. And
Right.
so as much as we can, you know, become aware of what our environment is, you know, creating
Yeah.
what it's, you know, how it's helping us and how it's creating a disservice for ourselves. And there's so much long-term effects associated with the exposure that, you know, again, like you
Right.
said, nail artists, hair artists, and people in the beauty industry. So the more that we, you know, put a stand to what it is that we want for ourselves and for our environment, for our clients, you know, I think that the industry will definitely continue to move in that direction. And so it sounds like you have so much more to share with us, and I would love to find out more. Can you tell us how we can either get a hold of you or how we can learn more, if you have any social media handles that you want to share with us?
Yeah. So my primary business is at caliwellness.com. That's our website, and our Instagram is the same, Cali Wellness. And we do a lot of education around environmental medicine and just sort of general naturopathic medicine, functional medicine, et cetera. We have an actual brick and mortar store in Newport Beach, California, where we house a lot of these kinds of products, as well as have, you know, a couple holistic estheticians and all sorts of things, cool things happening there. And then of course people can see me as a patient there, or also I do a lot of remote telemedicine these days. We also have, which I'm really excited about, something that can be linked through our website, and we're just about to launch our new Instagram account, which is called Low Tox Beauty Academy. And that's going to be specifically for beauty professionals. And it's all going to be education. Both my partner, Catherine, who has a lot of the know-how in terms of just like behind the chair stuff, because she's a stylist, or she was a colorist for a long time. She's developed a lot of, she'll talk, you guys are going to interview her later, and we'll talk a lot about her own journey, which has been pretty horrific actually in terms of chemical exposure. But she's done a deep dive, and she's completely knowledgeable in products, and then also the business side of switching salons over. And so she does a lot of coaching with other professionals who are wanting to make this change and transition to totally clean salons. So that's really exciting. And so she serves that purpose. But this Low Tox Beauty Academy is going to be really focused on beauty professionals, and my part of it is all education. So I'm going to do as much education as I can, explaining like how to identify exposure, you know, easy ways to, you know, avoiding is the big thing in environmental medicine. It's like, avoidance has to be a big part of the picture. But then there's simple things like what you should eat and how you should, simple ways that you can detox gently. That's one point before we run out of time I want to make sure that I make is because people who work in this industry tend to have an elevated toxic burden in their body. Everybody on the planet has a burden. You know, we live in a place that's not particularly clean. And so all humans are dealing with chemicals, and our bodies are really designed beautifully to get rid of them. But when, you know, you pile more, it's like a teeter-totter, you know, you put too many things on one end, eventually it's going to tip. And so that's really what we're trying to do. My big passion is to get to people before they reach that tipping point, you know?
Right.
And there's a lot of things you can do to enhance your natural ability to detox that doesn't require, you know, a lot of money, that just requires just some basic knowledge. But the one thing sorry, go ahead, go.
Yeah, it sounds like you were going to give us one of them. So go ahead. I really do want to hear one or two of them.
Yeah, basic stuff. So like some basic things are, of course, like drinking lots of water, especially like lemon water in the morning. Lemon water in the morning will help to kind of kick off your own detoxification capacity. Drinking things like green tea instead of coffee during the day. Green tea is a really, really potent antioxidant, and that's going to combat a lot of this stress that you're going to experience with chemicals. There's like a real simple, like you want to support your liver. Your liver and your kidneys are your main way to get things out of your body. If you start to see rashes on your skin is another route of elimination, and that's your body pushing that stuff out. So when you start to see rashes, that means that you're kind of a little behind the ball there. So you want to enhance your body's ability to detox. A real simple thing would be like, cilantro is great. I mentioned lemon water. I mentioned green tea. There's a herb called milk thistle. You can do a milk thistle tea. Milk thistle's great. Those kinds of things. There's a supplement called N-acetylcysteine, which helps you to produce more glutathione in your body, which is our major master antioxidant. So things like that. And then, NAC is great. It's real mellow. Some people will jump to, and this is the point I wanted to make, some people will jump into, like, especially around the new year where we are right now at this time of this recording, people are going like, oh, I should do a detox. If you're somebody who's exposed to a lot of chemicals, you don't want to do a big, strong detox without some guidance, because you can mobilize lots of chemicals that are stored up. We unfortunately store a lot of these chemicals in our cells because they're fat soluble. And so they get into our fat, they get into across our cell membranes, and we store them. So we don't want to, like, all of a sudden be like, oh, let's dump all this stuff out, and try to get rid of it, because then you just feel awful. So there's ways to do this. And the other thing I'll say is just really what you're eating. Like, diet is, in my line of work, diet foundation. It's a huge part of my job, is to try to just counsel people around a good, healthy diet. And one thing I think that's pretty unique to people who work in the beauty industry, and also like teachers and stuff, people who work really long hours and are busy back to back, they tend not to eat enough and or drink enough, because you're just busy and you're going all day and you're not eating and you're not drinking, and you tend to be lacking things that you need to help your body detox. And I could talk to you for hours on detox, and I'll do that on the Low Tox Beauty Academy if anyone's interested. But one thing you need lots of nutrients, vitamins and minerals. So just like a good vitamin mineral supplement will go a long way. And the other thing you absolutely need is protein. And my experience over the years with women, especially, not just women, but especially women and busy people, is they don't get enough protein during the day. And you need those amino acids in the protein to help to clear chemicals from your body. And we could go on and on, but that's like some simple stuff that you can do to start to protect yourself. Sorry, I'm just gonna go.
No, oh my gosh. Thank you so much. You have given us so much information, and I guarantee that when anyone is, going to watch this, they will most likely be pushing pause, taking notes, rewinding, really just writing a lot of this information down so that they can really start to evaluate and look at the things that are working for them and the things that they can alter even in the slightest bit, just to help their body, be strong and be able to remove toxins that they may kind of be around already. But I love all the tips that you have gave us today. Removing, certain products from our industry would be a dream as a whole in the future, but for now we have to make these changes for ourselves, and becoming aware of the information that you've given us is just so helpful. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm sure people will find you and get more information. Thanks for being a resource today for us. And thank you all for watching another episode of Wellness Wednesdays. As always, you can find me at Alejandra Abloom on Instagram, and find Innersense at innersensebeauty.com. And thank you so much again for watching.